What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Stock Trades YouTube channel. My name is Dan Kent, one of the co-founders of Stock Trades, and we're back at you this week with another amazing video. We're going to be going over a very popular high-yielding Canadian dividend ETF in this video. I'm going to provide my thoughts. I'm going to provide absolutely everything you need to make an educated decision on whether or not you want to own this thing. We're going to talk about the holdings, the fees, the allocations, the risks, the performance, absolutely anything you can think of, and we're going to dive into it right now. All right, everybody, as always, before we start, head down below, like the video, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment, let me know what fund you want me to go over next, what you want me to discuss next. I'm open to doing other types of videos. Again, we give away premium subscriptions to people who comment. We pick random winners. Last week, we picked a couple. We gave away over $600 worth of subscriptions. So you're going to want to take the 5-10 seconds it takes to drop a comment down below. And again, in the description, we have our No BS newsletter. It's a 2 times a week newsletter. We're going over stock research, market commentary, case studies, anything you can think of. We're going to help you in the markets today. We're going to remove uncertainty, help you invest stress-free, but you got to head down below to the description and join the newsletter. It's absolutely free, no gimmicks. Now, the ETF we're going to be going over is XEI. It is from iShares, BlackRock. It is the S&P TSX Composite High Dividend Yielding ETF, and this fund seeks to provide long-term capital growth by replicating, to an extent possible, the performance of the S&P TSX Composite High Dividend Index. So this is a index fund. It's going to track a particular index, which means that there isn't too much active management in this fund, which typically means fees can be a bit lower. But the thing about XEI is the fees are actually still quite high, and that is because this is more of a niche fund. I find that, a lot of these income-focused funds, they charge high fees because people like to invest in these because they have high dividends. They pay them monthly, so it's something that retirees can, rely on for monthly income, higher yielding income. Whether or not, that is worth it to you, that's completely up to you. I have no idea if this is really what you like. I'm just here to provide kind of an objective opinion on the fund itself. And if we go to fees, it sits at 0.22%, and we can go to the fact sheet here and confirm this. It's around 0.22%, which means you'll pay $2.20 every year per 1,000 you have invested. I always like to go to the fact sheet of the ETF to find fees, because what you'll get with some funds is you'll see on, say, Y Charts, Yahoo Finance, anything like that, they'll list a management fee, but what it will not include is the trading expense ratio. I cannot remember the fund that I went over prior. I believe it was a Hamilton fund, but the management expense ratio was about 0.55, which was what was listed on most websites. But then when you head to the actual fact sheet of the fund, it had a 0.15% trading expense ratio, making the total fees 0.7%. So I can't stress enough, if you're going to be buying funds, go to the fact sheet. Read this before you buy the fund. It is absolutely critical. So when we head to the dividend yield of the fund, it's 5.23%. This is a very high yielding ETF. It's pretty rare to see an ETF that yields north of 5%. Now, because this is such a dividend focused ETF, I want to get into the overall taxation of that dividend before we move on to the holdings. And if we come to the distribution characteristics on BlackRock's website here, we can see that for the most part, we can see XEI here. It's probably a little bit difficult for you to see on your screen. We can see that it pays on average in 2023, it paid about a 10-cent distribution every month. 9.2 cents, pretty much of that, was eligible dividends. So this is a relatively tax-friendly distribution. Now, I can't speak on what it would be moving forward, but for now, it doesn't look all that bad. And when we go to the remainder, there's a little bit of capital gains and a little bit of foreign income. I'm not exactly sure what the foreign income would be from. It might be from maybe some REITs inside of the fund or some Canadian companies that have foreign income, and as a result, that's a chunk of their distributions, and you'll see this in the ETF itself. Now, when we head down to December, it paid out a pretty chunky distribution at the end of the year, so it paid out a little bit more. 10.3 cents in eligible dividends, but then when we go forward, it paid out 36 cents out of the 46 cents in capital gains. So it paid out a bunch of end of the year capital gains to holders. And as a result, we get a total distribution of around $1.61 in 2023. And out of that, around $1.15 was dividends and 42 cents was capital gains. So it's important to understand that these funds pay distributions, not dividends. There's going to be, from a tax perspective, if you have this in a taxable account, there's going to be a wide variety of different types of taxation on the distribution, and you need to understand this. So now that we've talked enough about the distribution, let's go back to the fund itself. It's got about $1.57 billion in assets under management, which in Canada makes it a pretty reasonably sized fund. If you can get over $1 billion in AUM, you're generally pretty large. And when we head to the overall fundamentals of the fund, the forecasted dividend yield gets even bigger at 6.17%. And when we look to the price to earnings ratio, the forward price to earnings ratio, it's at 12.4. So this fund is relatively cheap, and the reason for this is it does contain a bunch of interest-sensitive companies. These companies typically yield high, they're typically slower growing, and they are typically high debt companies. They're sensitive to interest rates, and they haven't exactly performed all that well over the last while. And we can see this in the overall growth estimates. When we come down forecasted 5-year earnings growth, we're looking at 4.75%. For a lot of the S&P 500 and even some faster growing Canadian companies, you're going to see this in the high single digits. And when we look forward to next year's earnings growth, we're looking at only around 2.85. So this is certainly not a growth fund. This is a very slow growing fund. It contains a ton of mature companies, high yielding companies that generally will be sensitive to policy rates. And when we look to the overall risks of the fund, we can see a max drawdown of 45%. Now, I'm going to guess that this is because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, we're looking at a Sharpe ratio of 0.34, suggesting that this fund really hasn't done all that well over the last 10 years, risk-rated returns. But that max drawdown, I would imagine that came during the COVID-19 pandemic. And if we check here, we can see that yes, it was. It was during April of 2020, and the reasoning for this is this fund has a ton of energy exposure. So when we go to overall allocations, we can see that this is a pure stock fund. It's a pure Canadian fund, and when we go down here, we can see that it has 30% exposure to financials, and it has 31% exposure to energy companies. This is a hyper concentrated fund. You're talking 62% of this ETF is in energy and financials. Now, the reasoning for this is obviously our energy stocks are typically higher yielding. They typically grow the dividend at a reasonable pace, and the same thing with financial companies. Now, you're not going to see too many consumer defensive stocks in this fund. You're not going to see too many consumer cyclical stocks. Think of it like a Alimentation Couche-Tard. They're not exactly high yielding, although they're faster growing, so they're not exactly included in this fund because it aims to provide high dividends. Now, when we look to the overall makeup of the fund, you're typically getting, blue chip Canadian mature companies that are not growing that fast. They're paying out most of their earnings as a dividend. And when we get down here, we can see the vast majority of the fund is going to be large cap value, Canadian stocks that are probably trading at a discount right now. So when we look to the overall holdings of the fund, you're going to see a very, very top heavy energy cyclical focus. We're seeing, Suncor Energy is the top fund, followed by Canadian Natural Resources. These are the two largest energy companies in the country. They're blue chip energy stocks, but they're also going to be very, very focused on the price of WTI and natural gas. So they're going to be very volatile. Same thing with TC Energy and Enbridge, maybe not so much as an oil producer, but still you're looking at 3 out of your top 5 holdings being energy stocks, 3 out of your top, 79 total. After that, we have another major bank in Toronto Dominion Bank. We have a very cyclical company in Nutrien. They rely very heavily on the price of potash. Then we have our two major telecoms in here. Rogers is probably in here somewhere. Actually, no, it's not. And the reasoning for this is probably Rogers really doesn't focus on dividend growth. They haven't grown the dividend in quite some time. And as a result, they're probably not in this fund. If they are, they're outside of the top 25 holdings, and they probably have a relatively small weighting. But BCE and TELUS are very interest rate sensitive. They are high debt companies. They do not do well in a high policy rate environment, which we're in right now. Depending on how far you think rates will go down, they could see, more benefits as we move forward. But as of right now, they're not the hottest stocks in the country. In fact, I think BCE at the time of me filming this is hitting, 12, 13-year lows. I mean, we keep moving down the list. We got, Bank of Montreal, Bank of Nova Scotia, Fortis. We have other utilities like Emera. We have Brookfield Renewables. Again, these are going to be companies that are very highly sensitive to interest rates. They don't do well when policy rates are high. And as a result, neither of those three stocks, I don't think Emera has done bad, but they haven't necessarily done all that well. I mean, as we move down the list, we see more pipelines. We see Keyera. We see Pembina Pipe. So this pretty much contains, outside of Gibson Energy, it pretty much contains every major pipeline company here in Canada. Slower growing, higher yielding, but high debt companies sensitive to policy rates. So in terms of the holdings, it's not an equal weight fund. You'll see that it's pretty heavily weighted towards the top 10. I mean, even in the top 5 holdings, they make up, you're looking at 26, 27% of the fund. So it's not exactly hyper concentrated, but it's not equal weight by any stretch of the imagination either. And this is why you're getting that heavy financial and energy exposure. So how exactly has that energy and financial exposure worked out in terms of total returns? And I'll tell you right now, this fund has probably struggled over the last while, particularly to drive any sort of meaningful return for its holders. So if we look to XEI in relation to the TSX 60, we can see that over the last year, the performance is quite drastic. You're seeing the TSX 60 return around 17%, while XEI has returned around 9.6%. And if we span this farther out, we can see that over the last 3 years, it has kept pace with the TSX 60. And if we look to the purple line, which would be XEI, we can see it took off in 2021. What happened in 2021? Energy prices were sky high. I mean, if I add the price of WTI into here, you'll see that in 2021, look what happened to WTI oil. It went way up, and as a result, with this fund having 30% exposure to energy, it went way up. But it actually really hasn't done all that much since. You can see peak prices here. I mean, we're down at least, 5-10% from that period. So you're talking January 2022. So we're looking at, 2+ years of no returns. I'm going to highlight to you another very important event on this chart. We can look to July and June 2022. You can see the fund took an absolute nosedive in July of 2022. What happened in July 2022? Well, the Bank of Canada and the Federal Reserve started hiking interest rates. And we can see this fund has been pretty crazy volatile around those periods. As the rate hikes kept going up, the fund kept taking a bit of damage here. But when I say this fund is sensitive to policy rates, we can clearly see that in July of 2022, when interest rates went up, this fund took an absolute dive, and it hasn't really recovered since. So if we look to returns on an annualized basis, over the last 3 years, it's provided 9.14% annualized returns, which is pretty solid. But once we keep spanning this fund out, the returns kind of start to dip. You can see that 5-year annualized returns, it dips down to underperforming the TSX 60 by about 1.5%. And when we span it out to 10-year, you can see that it's only provided 6.24% annualized, whereas the TSX 60 is at around 8.23%. So this fund has really not done all that well relative to a total return basis. Now, if you're looking for strictly income, that's completely up to you. If you're fine with the performance, the lack of performance from the fund in regards to the fact that it owns, for the most part, mature blue chip companies that are not going to grow, likely not going to grow at the same pace of the market, and you just want that income, I'm not here to convince you otherwise. I'm just here to show you just the overall performance of the fund. it has been a drag in relation to the TSX 60. 2% annualized is quite a bit. I mean, when we look to the growth of $10,000, this includes reinvesting the dividends. You would have around 22,000 in the TSX 60, where you'd have around 18.3, and you wouldn't have been able to realize that passive income stream that this fund would give you. You would have had to reinvest the dividends in the fund to hit these returns, which are just shy of $4,000. And when we consider total returns of 22,000, that's actually quite a bit of a drag. So overall, I'm really not that big of a fan of Canadian dividend ETFs. I think they're way too concentrated in cyclical sectors. I mean, as core holdings in a portfolio, they add some pretty significant concentration risk. I mean, you're talking in this fund, XEI's case, 62% in financials and energy. I mean, if you have a big allocation towards this fund in your portfolio, you might be a lot more exposed than you think you are. As an individual position, as a small individual position, it takes away a bit of that concentration risk. But overall, I'm just not a fan of Canadian dividend ETFs. They have high fees in relation to what they offer. They're usually a drag on performance. I mean, there's been a few that have performed quite well, but overall, they kind of aim to provide a large monthly, typically paying. The ETF will pay out monthly, which adds an element to, a lot of income seekers where their stocks might pay quarterly, but they could buy this ETF, which unlocks monthly income. But outside of that, you're paying some pretty high fee. When you think of the fact you can buy a low-cost index fund for, 0.05, you're paying, nearly 5 times that amount to own XEI. As a total return investor, I'm just not a huge fan of these funds. And in the higher rate environment we're in, depending how low policy rates go, I mean, these funds could struggle, especially XEI moving forward. I mean, it effectively hasn't done anything for over 2.5 years. Now, that said, it could perform quite well if we see the Bank of Canada drop interest rates at a pretty rapid pace. Ultimately, these companies that are inside of this fund are going to benefit if interest rates fall. And as a result, you could see an improvement in performance. Again, everybody, I hope you liked the video. Head down below, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and remember, comment. We give away free subscriptions if you comment down below. We pick random comments. We give away $300 a year subscriptions and no BS newsletter. It's going to make you a better investor. It's free, absolutely no gimmicks. Sign up today and we'll see you next time for more great Canadian videos.